What if true knowledge doesn't lie in simple answers, but in the ability to ask questions with reason? The dust of Cordoba lies golden on the stones. In the distance, a muezzin calls to prayer as the shadows of the palm trees slowly shift. Beneath the white arches of an Andalusian hall sits a man who does not write, but listens. He does not ask, but understands. He wears no crown, no sword, no seal, but the weight on his shoulders is heavier than all three, for he carries the trust of the people and the burden of truth. His name is Ibn Rushd, and this video is not a monument to his scholarship. It is a call to clarity, to integrity, to truth in times of confusion. Ibn Rushd was born in 1126 in Cordoba, a city that, at the time, was one of the brightest centers of learning in the world. He came from a lineage of judges and scholars. His grandfather had served as a qadi, a religious judge. From an early age, Ibn Rushd showed extraordinary devotion to learning. He studied fiqh, hadith, medicine, logic, mathematics, and theology. But he was not a scholar lost in books. He was a servant of truth, driven not only to understand it, but to bring it into the world. As an adult, he became a judge, and later the chief qadi of Cordoba. His rulings were known for their wisdom, their fairness, and their incorruptibility. He did not speak for praise. He spoke for order, and he understood. Justice does not begin with laws. It begins with a clear heart. When political tides shifted, he fell out of favor. But even in exile, his gaze remained clear, his voice calm. Because Ibn Rushd was never bound to titles. He was bound to what remains, the duty to truth. Ibn Rushd left behind many books, but his greatest teaching was his way of being, the way he thought, the way he spoke, the way he judged. He lived in a time of uncertainty, but he did not search for security and power. He searched for it in clarity. His life shows us, truth is not what grows loud. It is what stays still and still endures. Firstly, knowledge demands responsibility. Ibn Rushd believed, knowledge is not decoration. It is a trust. Whoever understands must serve. Whoever knows must be honest. As a judge and a teacher, he took care that every word he spoke could stand, before Allah, before the people, and before his own conscience. He taught, a ruling must not depend on mood, not on benefit, only on what is just. And if you know that, then you must speak it, even when it is difficult. Secondly, truth demands courage, even if it leaves you alone. There were times when Ibn Rushd was honored for his clarity, and times when that same clarity brought him trouble. But he did not change. He did not bend. He remained. Even when he was exiled by political enemies, his dignity remained unshaken. He did not complain. He did not cling to his rank, because his honor was not tied to power, but to loyalty to the truth. His life reminds us, truth has a cost, but lies come with a debt, and those who wish to stay pure must be willing to stand still, even when others walk away. Thirdly, clarity begins within. Ibn Rushd was not a man of grand gestures, but everything about him was ordered. His speech, his thinking, his way of walking. He believed, if you want clarity on the outside, it must begin on the inside. He spoke slowly, he judged carefully, and he was always aware. Every moment is a test, not only in the courtroom, but in daily life, in conversation, in silence. For him, clarity was not a technique, it was the mirror of the soul. And only those who keep that mirror clean can walk upright, even in unstable times. Ibn Rushd did not teach through volume. He taught through measure, not through power, but through presence. His life is a quiet call to us all. Do not seek influence first. Seek sincerity, because the first fades, but the second endures. We live in a time full of voices, yet often lacking the silence in which truth becomes audible. We are good at collecting information, but we lose the order that gives it meaning. We speak often about justice, but fear the responsibility it demands. Ibn Rushd lived in a different era, but his poise, his clarity, and his quiet strength still speak. To anyone who wishes to live with integrity, firstly, speak only when you know, and act only when you have tested yourself. In a world full of opinions, Ibn Rushd reminds us of something simple. Knowledge is nothing without maturity. He spoke only when he was certain that his ruling rested on justice, not on assumption. And he acted only after examining his own intention in the light of his conscience. Today, where so much is loud and fast, this posture is more needed than ever. Pause before judging. Ask yourself, do I serve the truth or just my feeling? Because every word has weight and every step has direction. Secondly, your dignity does not depend on whether others validate you. Ibn Rushd was honored and later rejected, but neither raised nor lowered him, because his dignity was not tied to people. It rested with Allah and with the clarity of his heart. Even today, many discover that integrity is not always rewarded, that honesty can isolate. But Ibn Rushd teaches us, it is better to stand alone in truth than to be celebrated in falsehood. True dignity does not need a stage. It shows itself when you do not fall, even when others let you fall. Thirdly, clarity does not come through arguments, but through sincerity. We live in a time where many wish to persuade, but few convince through the lives they lead. Ibn Rushd impressed not through rhetoric, but through consistency. His clarity came not from a desire to please, but from loyalty to inner order. He was not perfect, but he was principled. And today, where so much is unclear and reactive, one thing becomes clear. We need people whose words arise from sincerity, whose yes means yes, and whose no is shaped by conscience, not mood. Because only where clarity lives can trust grow. Ibn Rushd teaches us, you do not need to be a judge to live with justice. You do not need a title to live with truth. And you do not need applause to walk upright. Clarity begins where you no longer need to impress. Where you ask, does this action serve what is good or just myself? And where you are willing to remain in silence. If silence is purer than any word. Ibn Rushd was not a man of noise. He did not seek headlines, applause, or power. And yet his voice still echoes. Not because it was loud, but because it remained clear. He lived in uncertain times, in a land of scholars, among pressures and expectations. But his compass was not what others said. It was what he recognized as true. In the light of his faith, he shows us, truth does not need a stage. Sincerity does not need witnesses. And integrity is born not in words, but in loyalty to what one knows is right. In a world that often wavers between noise and opinion, between haste and performance, Ibn Rushd offers a quiet but powerful reminder. Seek knowledge, but flee from pride. Speak with measure, and be silent with clarity. Do not first judge others. Ask whether you still follow yourself. What does inner clarity mean to you? And where in your life do you feel truth begin in stillness? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to learn more about wisdom, integrity, and spiritual depth in Islam, subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, the path to Allah does not begin with an answer, but with the honesty of a question.